Hey everybody, I wanted to show you guys some of the best tutorial levels in video games that I know of. A couple of restrictions in this list is that these are games that I own, so I was able to easily get capture footage from them. I wasn't going to include games I haven't played. Really, these are just a few notable starting points to games and how they teach you how to play the game from my collection, so we'll jump right into it. And first on the list, one of the very first 3D games I ever played on the PlayStation 2 when I had it pretty much when it was brand new is Jak and Daxter, and obviously the starting area, Geyser Rock, is, for me personally, a pretty iconic area for tutorial levels. Is one of the very first 3D environments I ever got to, explore around. For me, it's just such a cool place to hang out. You work your way around the island, you climb up to the top of the cliff, you learn how eco works, you have a geyser pool in the middle. It has all this cool stuff kind of just hidden away on this island. And everything, obviously, from the animations, from how Jak moves, and all the detail they put in the world, and the fact that you can stand out on the beach and you can see the different places that you can eventually go to. It's just a really cool place to go. As far as the tutorial goes, Jak and Daxter is a pretty simple game. You have the game is actually fairly simple, other than the collectathon part. It's actually, pretty engaging. It takes a long time to actually collect all the stuff in the game. But the game itself is actually relatively, I wouldn't say it's not super hard, but the platforming gets pretty cool later on. But as far as playing, it's really simple, and Geyser Rock is a really awesome place to learn how to play a 3D game for the first time. Then I have Gears of War 2, and you can include the original Gears of War 1 in this spot too, because both of those tutorials, they're skippable, which is really cool, because let's say you're playing for the first time, or you're playing with a friend for the first time and you're doing split screen, you can opt into the tutorial, and it's just a quick little side extra, just takes a couple extra minutes, or you could skip it entirely. In Gears of War 2, I think about that more often in this case, because you have Benjamin Carmine following you around. He's the new recruit, and he needs to get shown the ropes, and so it's, even though it's a sequel, you're teaching a new character how to go through the motions of how to play the game to survive here in this world.
Yeah, lucky me.
Next up, we have the original Kingdom Hearts game, and the starting area, Destiny Islands. Now you could say that only the dream section of this game, of the start of the game, is actually the tutorial, and Destiny Islands is just kind of this is the start of the game. But in a sense, I include all of it because the game is teaching you the platforming, it's introducing you to the characters, and it's setting up the themes of the story in general. Yeah, and there's so much stuff going on inside of Kingdom Hearts, and especially that first 45 minutes where you're getting introduced to Riku and Kairi. Yeah, you kind of see that where Sora and Riku's rivalry is kind of growing, and it really sets up like the themes of the whole game of these characters don't know if they're going to be together forever, if they get separated, what are they going to do? They Sora kind of feels a little bit helpless that he's not as strong as Riku, he's not as cool as him or something, and there's a lot of existential, why are we here, what are we going to do, where are we going to go, kind of, stuff that the game really throws at you real early on. And of course, not only the tutorial bits of this area is important, but it's also the place where you start building your character. You have the choices of whether to use strength, defense, or magic. How fast do you want to level up to level 50, or or after level 50. There's those questions that you get in the beginning of the game. Yeah, like any RPG, like the beginning section of the game is kind of where you learn how you're gonna build your character out, and I kind of lumped that into the tutorial. In this one, I'm playing fast and loose with the definition of tutorial. There definitely is the very first part of this game where you're being told like kind of how the game works, but it's not necessarily from the driving perspective. It's just here's the events, how to do it, select your car, blah blah blah. But the way the Forza series just kind of introduces you how to drive these cars is really neat. You can set all of the assists on if you're brand new and you don't really know how the controls work. You can ease yourself into all the mechanics, so you can set auto drive, you can set and the traction control and all those other things, manual or automatic transmission. And the game's really good at just letting you ease into like more and more simulation based racing, and you can start off really easy if you want. And so that kind of aspect, along with the reverse mechanic, is some of the neat stuff that at least Forza 3 does, in a great way of introducing you to a simulation racing game. The way that Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 2 introduces you to the game, especially if you're playing the game for the multiple times and you just need to get through the tutorial, or you played the previous game and you kind of understand what the game's going to be about, having a self-aware tutorial is actually really neat. It's kind of neat in having you be able to have a more enjoyable experience during the first few moments of a video game where you're doing kind of that rinse and repeat if you actually know what's going on already. I really like the Spider-Man 2 tutorial because Bruce Campbell is pretty funny. He's making jokes at Spider-Man's expense. It's kind of fun just to follow along with what he's talking about, with what he's saying, and then like kind of just like, oh, you're gonna make fun of me now. Like, it's pretty funny. And kind of the last moment in the tutorial where he tells you to jump off the building, and this isn't him or nothing, but in the last moment where you jump off the building and it goes in slow-mo, something I just kind of do habitually, that I've done ever since I was a kid, is that I just get as close to the ground as possible before hitting the swing button and seeing what happens. If like, you can totally fail this tutorial and hit the ground and have to start over. Of all the tutorials out there, this one's definitely one of the funniest. I think Simpsons Hit and Run also has a self-aware tutorial. I didn't really think of that in time for this one, but as far as funny tutorials go, this one's probably up there.
You don't actually jump until you've let go of the jump button. Okay? Now go jump in a lake.
And one of the cool things about Fable 2's tutorial in its starting area is that some of your most earliest decisions are some of the most impactful to the world, especially when you come back after the start of the game. But you go around town and you're doing odd jobs for people collecting gold, and there's plenty of bad people who are influencing you, asking you to do the wrong thing. And sometimes doing the bad thing is easier than doing the nice thing, but you'll get the same amount of gold either way. It's just the way that these decisions seem pretty mundane at first, but when you come back to Bowerstone, you realize how big of impact it had, and you start to realize, maybe, well, like, this game is actually like making my decisions important, and having a game like Fable 2 do that right in the starting gates is actually really neat. And another one we have that's similar to that is Fallout 3. When you first start Fallout, it's much more of a traditional RPG. Almost everything you do in the vault influences your starting stats, so it's really hard to just kind of run through and not pay attention to what you're doing. You really want to have your build in mind when you go through the vault. That way, you can customize your stats at the end before you finish, but it's always good to have something in mind, and that way you're consistent. The decisions you make inside the vault do carry over to later, to a more late game mission when you come back there, and it influences your character and your stats. Yeah, the goat is kind of the big thing that determines your stats for you. But it's pretty iconic because it's a really good start to a really good game. As far as the tutorial goes, it sets you through the motions of what buttons do this, what buttons do that, and how to shoot. Maybe it'll tell you, they give you a BB gun, and they let you talk to people. And I think the only bad thing about this section of the starting section of Fallout 3, it's the first time you had any amount of freedom in the game whatsoever, and so it's kind of hard to find your way through there, and you're getting shot at and stuff. But it's really not a big deal because you can just run past everybody. It's not that hard. But Fallout 3 is a very good beginning to a very good RPG, just like a lot of these.
You're going to look a lot like your dad.
And next up, we kind of have a 2-for-1 deal. Both Modern Warfare games, the first two, have a really cool kind of time trial tutorial section where they set you through the motions, how to do the basics, and then they set you through a obstacle course or time trial section to help you determine the difficulty of your playthrough. The better you perform on these obstacle courses, the better, the higher difficulty it'll rate you for. It encourages you to do better because it sets you up with a goal, and if you achieve that goal, you either get an achievement or you get some cool line of dialogue where the guy congratulates you. I had Modern Warfare 2, I actually tried playing a really fast time on that time trial, and I did the same on Modern Warfare, but that time trial is a little bit trickier. It's a little bit hard to get that last few seconds shaved off. You have to really do some flashbang magic to get the full, get faster than 15 seconds. And 15 seconds is it's really fast. But at least you can bang out the attempts really quickly, which is nice. I just think they're both actually pretty neat. And then another game that I think actually does that same thing, but even better, is Titanfall 2. Now, Titanfall 2 has the gauntlet, and that hologram section in the beginning of the game where you learn the ropes. And the gauntlet is like the obstacle courses from Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. But with the added mechanics of Titanfall. So the wall running and the shooting and the double jumps and maintaining your speed. And so it's a really great way of teaching the player that, hey, this isn't just your typical first-person shooter. We're almost making a first-person platformer where you can run along walls. It gets really nuts with what you can do. And I tried this for a few minutes to get a good time, and I got pretty fast. But when I tried following some of the ghosts that I had to compete with, it was really nuts seeing how like they're getting really fast starts, how they're making these jumps, and they're doing really well. And I think you probably look it up, you could probably see like the fastest time on YouTube, and people speed running this section, and it's just absolutely nuts, which is really crazy. So these 3 games do it really well, but I think if I had to rank them, it would, I think I'd put Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 just right next to each other, and Titanfall 2 probably does it a little bit better. It's a little more unique. And one of the most important tutorial sections in RPGs, especially difficult ones, is Dark Souls. And the Undead Asylum is, it doesn't really hold your hand that much. It gives you a lot of hints. It's kind of an iconic start to a classic game. It doesn't really hold your hand much at all. Like, it just kind of tells you what to do, and it's up to you to figure out the feel of the game and make sure that you can actually, and you literally dropped into a boss fight, and it doesn't really expect you to win this boss fight in the tutorial, which is really neat, because pretty much every other game ever would have you either just win without even having to think much of what you're doing. But this game, actually beating the first initial boss is sometimes a hairy situation that you're not necessarily going to achieve every time. So that's really cool. I think Demon Souls did that too. You weren't supposed to beat the first boss in Demon Souls. You're supposed to get killed, and that's how you got introduced to the hub world area. But you have a neat reward if you actually beat the boss the first time. You get to the hub world in a more dignified way. It's kind of cool. And that's my list. If you think I missed anything, let me know. I haven't played every video game. I don't own every video game. But if anything comes to mind, let me know, and I'll check it out, because, just like anything, the first few months of any experience are really important to solidifying, your expectations or your mindset about something. So it's like, just let me know if there's other games that have great tutorials in the comment section. Any games that are worth playing almost just for the tutorials. I think one game comes to mind. It's the old PlayStation game Driver. I played that. I actually finished that garage section. I thought that it was so challenging that it's not a great tutorial. It's really ambiguous what it's trying to tell you to do, but it was almost more fun than the rest of the game. This might be a controversial opinion, but the Driver tutorial is actually just really ridiculous in how hard it is to figure out what it's trying to tell you to do. Like and subscribe and tell me what you think. I'm always replying to people in the comment section, so see you there.